It's Monday and time for the Back to Business podcast, featuring Calgary's industry leaders. Welcome today's show host, Kim Hayden.
In the world of business development and entrepreneurialism, having those leaders, mentors, coaches, sponsors to help you elevate and maybe not make all the mistakes that you may have made on your own. Edward Callaway is in studio today from Sonic Coaching Partners, and he's going to be walking us through some basic principles of developing your business out, understanding where you are, and how can you grow. So stick tight, but first, our land acknowledgement.
In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Siksika, Ka'aina, Piikani, the Tsuut'ina, the Eahe Nakota Nations, the Métis Nation Region 3, and all people who make their homes in the Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta.
Hi, Edward. Welcome to the show.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Kim.
You said this is your first podcast.
My very first podcast.
Your very first
You
podcast.
bet.
Okay, well, I'm glad that I get to help you with your training wheels and shove you down the hill, like every good parent teaching a bike ride.
Yeah.
Once you figure it out, it's easy to do.
I'm excited to set my hair on fire and roll down that hill.
So I'm excited today because you're in the business coaching space.
That's right.
And I know that with the disruptions we've had over the last few years and the evolution of technology, we've had a lot of shifts and stuff. There's a lot of people looking for mentorship, leadership, sponsorship, coaching. But if we could dive first into where you're from and then what you're doing.
Excellent. Well, I'm from Calgary, born and raised. I graduated Crescent Heights High School and Mount Royal University a long time ago. I won't say how long ago. I went into, I studied criminology originally and realized that partway through that I wanted to be of service, but I wanted to be in service in a particular way, and enforcement wasn't the way that I wanted to do that. I was in retail, putting myself through university and, the typical life of a hardworking student. And once I graduated, there was an opportunity to go into some formal leadership. I'd always had sort of responsibilities along the way, department leads, supervisor, things like that. And I decided to take the leap and go into management. And I spent 25 years in that industry and worked my way up from an assistant manager to a manager, GM, and then a director. And all along the way, I fixed broken businesses or broken locations. And that was really my foundation for coaching. I moved out to the West Coast and spent some time out there, missed the sunny Alberta skies and ended up coming back here. And it's here that I started my formal coaching journey or marketing myself as a coach rather than working through organizations to improve business processes.
With your original track of criminology,
Yeah.
the psychology and such, do you see that there's correlations and such that you see that cross over into the business world that, have been able to help you to be able to decipher why people do what they do?
Absolutely do. And throughout my entire career, there's lessons and processes that I learned through the psychology piece, human relations, even interviewing techniques. I was using behavioral interviewing styles before it was avant-garde to do so. And it was really foundational in some of the learning that I went through in that criminology process. There was factors of human psychology that are so fascinating. And that's why I stuck through the program, even though I realized partway through I wasn't going to necessarily apply it in my life, but I wanted to finish the program and continue that learning. And it did absolutely pay off.
Yeah, I could see how learning how to profile behaviors would translate over into profiling behaviors of companies. So, what are some of the things that you attribute your success to beyond your education? Attracting the right clients. So tell us a little bit about your company here and how it's growing. I know that you're going through a growth pattern, a growth spurt right now. So you're actually changing into partners. So you're attracting more people. Can you give us a little bit more insight?
For sure. Yeah. Thanks for asking, Kim. So the company is Sonic Coaching Partners, and I'm one of the coaches. There's 3 of us, soon to be 4. So we're growing our coaching side. We're also growing our sales and development side. We just brought on our sales and development manager, and Sonic was founded over 15 years ago by Oliver Basner, who very similar to my background, did a lot of fix it and turnaround work for retailers and manufacturing companies and the like. And it's actually part of my benefit, I guess, is learning from a mentor myself.
Yes.
When you start a coaching practice, there's a lot of work to be done, and you can make mistakes, and we haven't done everything perfectly along the way, but I have the benefit of learning from Oliver's experience over the last 15 years building a successful coaching business. My wife is one of the partners, and she's a certified behavioral analyst, works with our DISC assessment. So you want to talk about psychology? We go deep into behavior sets and psychological profiles with clients. And she's part of that world. She teaches us how to decode DISC results. And this is just one of the assessment tools that we use. As we grow and we bring in more coaches, our goal is to be a force to be reckoned with. When you think of coaching in the city of Calgary, you're going to want to think of Sonic Coaching.
And Calgary is going through an evolution, almost a metamorphosis from where we've been very stagnant within a singular industry, and now we're seeing evolvement of everything from tech hubs to financial hubs through design hubs. We even have AI accelerators, and this is just such a cool city to be part of. I want to scoot back though to DISC. For those who are listening that do not know what DISC is, can you go into that just a wee bit? What is the DISC of DISC? And just give us a kind of a 3,000 foot look at that.
I'd be happy to. It's something I talk about on a routine basis. So DISC deals with 4 different elements of our personality or behavior sets, right? D is for dominance, and it's about how we approach problems and challenges. I is for influencing, and it's about how we approach people and contacts. S is for steadiness, and it's about how we handle pace and consistency. And C is for compliance, and it's about how we handle procedures and constraints. And where we land when we take an assessment, we land on a score 0 to 100, and everybody lands just a little bit differently. And some of the assessment tools pigeonhole you into I'm this type, I'm type A, or I'm NTSC, things like that. DISC is more dynamic, and it looks at humans on a spectrum. And we can pick out some key strengths and opportunities based on these results, right? So having a high score in one category doesn't necessarily define us, and it doesn't have to be a good or a bad thing, right? We don't typecast people in it. It's a really neat way to dig into how we approach situations, how we communicate, even how we're motivated. One of the tools that we deal with is driving forces. So what gets your fire going, right? Why some people are motivated by some rewards programs, or employees may not fall into the dangling carrot model. Like, here, if you do this, you're going to get this. How come we're not getting those results? Well, they may not be motivated by that, right? It's fascinating the depths.
And DISC is one of the oldest analytics, like oldest profiling tools out there, isn't it?
It's
It's
been
like
around
back from like
for,
the 1930s or something.
The psychological science it's based on is from the 70s.
70s.
There are some older ones like Myers-Briggs is observational data.
Yeah.
But there's a bias there
think-
because
yeah.
it was formulated by the two creators and it was based around their observations, right?
Yeah.
DISC, and the reason that we use DISC is because it's unbiased. There's no manipulation of the algorithm. It's pure science. They actually do a thing where they brain map. So when they analyze the questions that you get asked in the assessment, if it's not lighting up the right quadrant of your brain, then they alter the question. So it's evolved over time, and it's really got a solid foundation in science.
Okay, this is going to sound super, super corny, and
Okay.
forgive me if this is completely wrong, folks, but I remember reading somewhere that the guy who wrote Wonder Woman actually was part of the lie detector, developing the lie detector, and that's where the Wonder Woman rope came from. And
The
that's
lasso
the
of truth.
lasso, and that was a foundational research piece to the DISC program.
Interesting.
That's I'm going to look that up. But I'm thinking that was because I just remember that it was all looped in, and all those studies were around the development of the lie detector. And like you said, 100% science. It's understanding how your brain. So I love the DISC program. I've done it several times, and I always seem to be on the opposite side of everybody else in the room. And no matter which profiling program comes out,
Well,
I did
that
this
just
one
makes
that's
you unique.
my mother used the word unique. I know what unique means, Edward. When we're looking at the mentorship, leadership, coaching, sponsorship space, and with the disruption within the traditional workspace, where more and more people are working independently, and we're seeing this growth in small business development. How important is it for somebody who's coming out to have a coach, a mentor, a sponsor? How important is that?
I feel it's wildly important. There's definitely a shift. And one of the things that I often encounter when I talk to business owners and I ask them about their journey is, how did you get started in your business? Well, COVID hit. I worked a corporate job. I felt like I was a number. And now, it caused me to reassess my values and what I want to do. So I'm like, here's an opportunity to branch off in a new direction, right? Without maybe some of the foundational skills that were needed to make that business viable in the long term. So now there's business owners who are struggling with that initial success piece, but there's a plateau. Now what do I do, right? And when we focus on growth as coaches, that can be important. Even from a leadership perspective within organizations, the fact that teams go remotely now, so there's less interaction in the workplace. We start to lose some of those soft skills. We're face to face right now. I can read what's going on, right? We can have a deeper connection, but we lose that when we're looking at a screen. So when I work with leaders, some of that is about that in that digital space, how do you still project your confidence and your vulnerability and your leadership style, right? It's very important in the evolving, the way that workplaces are evolving, but also as the business landscape changes, having someone to bounce your ideas off of,
Yes,
and be a sounding board is critical for business owners and long-term success.
I couldn't agree more with that, because I feel often that I'm working in a silo. And I have, a team of 8 that work with me, but I'm the leader.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no room for me to show uncertainty or fear or any
because
concerns.
what happens if you do? If you
It
go to your
trickles
team
down.
and you say, hey, I really don't know about this initiative we've started, that creates a culture of uncertainty. Right?
Exactly.
And it's hard to retain employees when they're thinking, what's the future?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So wouldn't it be better to bounce your ideas off of me?
110%. Yeah, 110%. Now, I want to do so. Let's give tangible steps. We know, you and I both know, being self-employed, being self-driven, that most people who start a business or consultancy will bootstrap it. There's not big dollar funding from the banks or anything like that. So when they're bootstrapping it, they're looking, where do I place my resources? My time, my energy, and my money, right? Walk me through that. What are some stair-stepped ways that people can get themselves to the point where getting a mentor, a coach, and such? What's the very first thing you think they should do in order to start, I guess, engaging or aligning with similar mindsets?
I think the first step would be an analysis of where am I spending my time? How much time have I devoted to my business? Did I leave a corporate job that was 40 hours a week and now I'm working 60, 80, 90 hours a week, right? Is that the time then to start thinking about, and it could be a scary process.
Yeah.
How do I add somebody or a sounding board or a mentor into my business without it taking up more time? Right. And really the fundamental for that is I look at how people spend their time, right? Are they leading their business? Are they working in a visionary space? Are they projecting for the future? Are they looking rearward and analyzing where they've come from, what they've done, what's working and what's not? Or are they doing all the things that are required for the business to operate, right? Are they just in their business all the time, right? I'll never help anyone be a better baker or a better electrician or a better mechanic, let's say. Those aren't skills that I'm equipped for, right? But I can help you be a better business owner, a better business leader, looking at the metrics that you're tracking and judging. And when we work together, it's not about working in your business, it's about working on your business, right? Now we're freeing up time, then we can work on what's the growth strategy? What's the succession plan? What are the steps that we're going to do to make this to get you back to the dream you had when you started your business? I can go on vacation whenever I want. I can do this. I can do that, right? I didn't realize I was buying 3 full-time jobs when I bought this business, right?
And that I hear on a regular, right? But if you're loving what you're doing, then it's kind of like our children. Like we have a kid and that kid is a full-time job for the rest of your life, right? Yeah. And, the only dividends is hopefully they love you back.
People say do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. But if you start a business based on what you love, you will work 3-time jobs doing what you loved.
Yeah.
And you may end up hating that in the long run, right?
Yes.
So when we work with business owners and we set goals and accountabilities and strategies for growth that get the owner outside of that, all those ins and outs, the technician jobs that are required to run a business, then they can get back to doing what they love and find that time and the freedom to spend time with their kids and go on their vacations.
I was chatting with a gal recently and I asked her, is there anything I can do to be of help? And she said, well, I need leads. And I hear that all the time from people. But to me, I don't know. I'm not in the coaching space or the mentorship space. But to me, I sit there and go, well, leads is a result of something, right? So, and we hear this in every business. How do you get past the mindset of, I need leads to, I need to do these 4 things in order to generate opportunity?
That's a great question. So part of that mindset is going from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. A scarcity mindset says, I need leads. If I don't get leads, I'm going to be in trouble. a growth mindset is about I'm capturing leads and then I'm converting them. One of the things that I hear often from business owners and leaders is I need more customers, right?
Yeah.
Well, customers is a byproduct of two inputs into your business. One is marketing leads and one is your conversion rate, right? So when we focus on those as opposed to the customer is the end result, we're actually putting more into the business than we are trying to get out of it. If that
No,
answers
that makes
the question.
absolute
Yeah.
sense. Absolute sense. Do you find that in today's world, digital world, that marketing is harder?
I think so. There's a lot of, I hear all the time, oh, well, I'm putting it out on social media. I'm putting it out on social media, right? Social media is a great vehicle. It's a great way to be visible, but it's not necessarily the be all and the end all. And when we talk about how do we earn leads, right? And I'm not a marketing expert. There are times when it's the call needs to be made, right? We've got a strategy. We're working on that. We've set some goals and accountabilities. Now we maybe need to bring somebody in who can really quarterback this as an expert, right? The one of the challenges I think that in that social space is people put all their eggs in that basket and expect a lot of results, right? The algorithms are really weird on a lot of these platforms, and you don't necessarily get the visibility that you think, right? So I'll ask people, what are you doing? Like, what's an organic way to drive some leads, right? Let's go old school sometimes, right? It can be email campaigns, it can be mail outs, it can be networking opportunities. Like, what are you doing to actually drive some things rather than just post and hope?
Post and hope. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Post and hope. And now my background, I have 20 some years of real estate. So I know a lot of real estate stats, and realtors are always marketing, right? That's their entire agenda is to market, right? And one of the stats came back on social media conversions through the National Association of Realtors that when people ran funnels, they had like a 0.5% conversion, right? Because these are cold leads. But if you went and you did an open house, you had like a 5% conversion directly from, and it's traffic, right? But this lends itself to what you were saying is maybe looking at some old school tactics. Yes, most people do want an online store or service, but I mean, I still see online companies having, these conferences together and having, getaways together, and they're still taking people within their local market.
Well, referrals and warm leads is a very old school way to do things, but it gets you that introduction, it gets you that handshake already, right?
Yeah.
If I know someone that I can connect you to and make that a warm introduction, what a great start, right? And I'll put my coach hat on for a moment. If we were talking about how to generate some more of that, right? It's okay. Well, referrals and warm leads, what you're going to want to do is reach out to your raving fans, right? Your past clients that you've done a fantastic job for, your current clients that have nothing but great things to say about you, right? Now, as people, as humans, we're hardwired to help each other out, right? So when you come to someone and you say, "Can I ask you a favor?" It feels like you're going to ask me to help them move or help you move, right? You're going to offer me flat beer and lukewarm pizza, right? And I'm going to throw my back out for 2 weeks. I'm not as interested. But when you say, "Can you help me out with something?" It ties into our community desire to be there for one another. I think about the flood that happened in Calgary.
2013, right?
Exactly, yeah. And how the community came to, it's just natural for everyone to want to help each other out. So when you're looking for that warm lead or that warm introduction, you say, "Can you help me out?" We're more likely to say, "Yes, what do you need?" Well, I'd love an introduction to someone in whatever space you're looking for, right? So, call it the accounting space, accounting and tax space, right? Do you know anyone in the accounting and tax space, right? I'd love an introduction, right? And then we're off to the races.
It also shows that you value what they bring to the table.
Yeah.
And everybody loves to be seen, heard, and valued. Right?
Absolutely, right? Right. We want to be the center of attention, right? And when we have an opportunity to help and it makes us feel good and makes us look good. Yeah. People often jump at that.
There's studies that go around past client engagement, and they say that a lot of people never hear from the person they worked with, right? What is stopping people from re-engaging their past clients and to get those raving? Is there a fear factor? Did I not do enough? What is the block there for most?
It could be several factors. It could be imposter driven, that imposter syndrome. Like, this person stopped working with me for whatever reason. Do I really want to revisit that? People suffer from fear of failure most often, right? But fear of success can actually be a huge block, right? What if I reach out and now I'm going to have to do something, right? And depending on, and can tie this back to our desk, right? How comfortable we are having those conversations or reopening those. If we're more direct in our approach, if we're much more reserved, that's going to have factors as well, right? I've talked to people all the time who hate picking up the telephone, right?
I'm one of those people.
Do you remember? Okay, so we used to pay for ringtones, right?
Yes.
And I forget what it was, 15, 25 cents, whatever, $1 per ringtone, right? Because we wanted it to sound cool when our phones rang.
Yeah.
Right. But now, if the phone rings, I probably want to throw it across the room. Like, I don't want to answer that.
It's like
right?
coming to my door. Don't come to my door unless you got food. Don't come to my door.
Food or wine or good company. That's when you can come and knock on my door.
What do you feel that your Calgary advantage has been?
Calgary is my hometown, and even though I did move away, I couldn't wait to get back here. The Calgary advantage, I think, is we're a big city, but we still feel like a small town, and we know. You and I have been to several networking events together. We always run into people that we know in some capacity or other, and we're a lot more interrelated and connected in this community than some people would believe if you're from outside, right? Like our new growth and development manager, we were talking about how everybody in Calgary knows somebody. So there is a connection, right? 6 degrees of separation from who you want to get in the room with, right? So there's a huge advantage to how small town the business community in Calgary feels.
Yeah, and I don't know if Calgary will ever change. I've been here, moved here in 99 when we were just under 800,000, and our recent numbers just came at 1.8.
Yeah,
and so that's 1 million people, and yet I don't know if it's because I've been here forever, but it is crazy how if you want to do something, if you want to engage, if you want to grow or build something, you can, because you're, like you said, and I don't even think it's 6 degrees. I think it's like 3 degrees.
Yeah. I hope it never changes, honestly.
Yeah. And I don't know if it could be because Calgary attracts a lot of young people, right? We're a very young, industrious city. And that could be because our backyard is absolutely gorgeous and rugged, like with Banff and the mountains and all the, wilds around us. People want to be here. It could be that we aren't the most favorable or most populous province in Canada, so we get a little scrappy here. And I think that translates into like the 2013 flood. Everybody showed up with a pail, a mop, a squeegee, whatever they had.
Absolutely.
So, and I always just kind of wonder if it's kind of like when we think of Australia. I feel like everybody down in Australia could wrestle an alligator. I'm sure that's not true. However, nobody down there gets afraid of spiders, right? But I had that same kind of feeling about Alberta and about Calgary, that no matter what gets thrown at us, we're just kind of scrappy enough.
The resiliency and the ability for us as a community to come together in times of hardship and come through it strong. Yeah, you mentioned bringing or attracting a youthful feel to the city, and I think that's reflected in some of the things that I see in the tech sector. All right, and another Calgary advantage would be our openness to diversification in the business landscape. Right, it's not always all about oil and gas, and I'm a big fan of oil and gas.
I'm not riding on a solar powered plane anytime in the near future. Just letting you know, when they strap those solar panels onto the next 747, doesn't matter if the ticket's for free. Doesn't matter. Not doing it.
You and me both. But, I do see a lot of innovation and a lot of fantastic ideas coming out of different sectors that aren't what we would consider our traditional strength in Calgary or in Alberta. And I think it plays well and it bodes well for the future.
And I think Calgary has done such a good job on really approaching the engagement and education aspect of helping to drive the city forward. We see initiatives like Platform Calgary. We see initiatives all over. Even here at the Petroleum Club, the Calgary Petroleum Club, CalPE is doing their young professionals leadership, mentorship. They have all these different free programs to help encourage people to continue to grow. In moving forward, I'd love to get a piece of advice from you for, let's just build a hypothetical young professional here in Calgary, right? Because they only know Calgary. So if somebody is 26 here, all they've known since 2014 was the financial hardships that Calgary has hit, right? And yet Calgary's coming out the other side after this pandemic in such a robust space. And I think that's in part because we confronted the challenges we were having in 14, 15, 16, 2017, right? And in 2018, we started implementing solutions. What is, from Edward, some great advice for our young professionals that are building the Calgary of tomorrow?
That's a great question, and hopefully it's not a spoiler alert because the club has graciously asked me to speak to the young professionals at a future date. But one of the things that I would say is know thyself. So that you can be nimble. There will be ups and downs, and we'll weather recessions and changes in the environment. But we always come through, right? So knowing what our strengths and weaknesses are, and pairing that with some mentorship and some guidance can really give you a foundation for weathering those storms, right? Learn from those examples, right? Take those key lessons when it hits the fan, and sometimes it will. You pick yourself up and you get back on the horse, and you learn to ride again. But what did you learn from that? What can you apply to future situations to avoid falling off or falling out of the saddle again? And live your values. There's one of our core values at Sonic Coaching Partners is love. And how many times have you ever been in a boardroom where you've seen love on the wall, right? We approach things. We love people. We love business. We love each other. We go forth with, trying to bring a humanness back into organizations and in the workplace. And that really has to be driven from that, right? So no matter what your core values are, whatever the metal or the steel inside of you is, stick to those, right? If you're in a situation where it's at odds with who you are fundamentally, something's going to go wrong, right? And it could be a bad situation in the end. So be aware of that and live your values and I'm not a millennial. I don't feel like, jumping around the different workplaces and the way they feel sometimes, right? But I understand those generational differences. But I think a bit like a millennial when I say live your values and move on if you're the opportunity or the space that you're in doesn't help you live those.
I love that. I really do. I think it's important because at the end of the day, we can't take anything with us. And all we truly leave behind is the legacy of how we've treated others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, too true.
Thank you, Edward. I really appreciate your time.
This was fantastic and so much fun. Thank you, Kim. This was a great first podcast.
Thank you for joining us today on the Back to Business podcast. Be sure to visit calpeteclub.com, CALPETECLUB.com, to find out more about upcoming events, networking opportunities, and membership. If you are not already a valued member at the CPC, where we are proudly connecting and supporting Calgary's business leaders.